Alright, so to get started with this Afghan in the tutorial, I have used the Lion Brand ice cream in Shirley Temple. And I did use 560 grams. I have down in the comments all the details. In this tutorial, I am using a 5.5 millimeter hook. You'll need a darning needle. I recommend a stitch marker because if you're doing this with me across the 5 parts and the 5 weeks as I'm premiering these, you will want to mark your stitch. And then I also have a set of scissors. And so I will make a note that down in the comments is going to be your timestamps, your stitch counts, as well as all the details on how to get one of 3 of these sizes. I did use a number 4 weight yarn here for the tutorial. It did call for a 6.5 millimeter hook, but I dropped it down to a 5.5 millimeter. This is going to give you a 53-inch diameter. So your round pineapple Afghan is going to be 53 inches from one side to the other. And then if you go up to a 7 millimeter hook, you will get a 68-inch diameter. And if you go down to a 4 millimeter, you will get a 38-inch more of a wheelchair stroller size Afghan. But I will list all those details down in the comment section for everybody, along with the timestamps and your stitch counts, just in case I mess anything up along the 5 parts. But with that said, thanks so much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing everybody's end results, and let's go ahead and get started into part 1. I'm so excited. I hope you are too. All right, so I'm going to be making a slip knot to get started, and we're going to chain 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and go ahead and make a slip stitch to the first chain so that you can create a ring. Okay, row 1, we are going to be chaining up 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is going to serve as a double treble chain 1. And so now what you're going to do is yarn over twice. You're going to go back into the circle. You're going to pull up your loop. Yarn over and pull through 1 loop. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and chain 1. Do that again. Yarn over twice, go into your loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and chain 1. So repeat that 15 more times, and the double treble I'll show you one more time is going to be a pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and chain 1. At the end of this round, you're going to have 18 double trebles and 18 chain spaces. All right, so I have my 18 double trebles and my 18 chain spaces. And now I'm going to actually slip stitch into the side as well as the back bump of the 5th chain in my chain 6 from the beginning double treble. Okay, just like that. Okie dokie. Moving on to round 2, we're going to be slip stitching into that chain space. Okay. Now this is going to be a V-stitch round. So to get started, you're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do a double crochet into that same chain space. Okay. Now into every chain space all the way around, you're going to be putting a V-stitch, and that's going to be a double crochet, a chain 2, and another double crochet. So at the end of round 2, you're going to have 18 V-stitches into all of your chain spaces from round 1. All right, so I have my 18 V-stitches. We are going to count up to the 3rd chain in that chain 4. We're going to pick up the side as well as the back bump, and we're going to slip stitch to complete the round. And so that's going to be 18 V-stitches in our chain 1 spaces from round 1. Moving on to round 3, you are going to slip stitch into the chain space of that very first V-stitch. You're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to count as our first treble, and now we're going to yarn over twice and do 4 more trebles. So pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. This treble stitch is much different than our original round where we had a double treble. So let's do that treble together. Yarn over twice, do our third treble here, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Let's do it again. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then for our 5th treble, because that chain 4 served as our first treble, we're going to yarn over twice, go back in, yarn over, pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now into the next V-stitch, we're going to place a V-stitch. So do a double crochet, chain 2, and another double crochet. So then this is your repeat. You're going to do 5 trebles into the next V-stitch and then a V-stitch. Okay, so let's do it together. So yarn over twice, go into that V-stitch, pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Do that 4 more times. So 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now into the next stitch, we're going to be doing our V-stitch. It's going to be a double crochet, chain 2, and another double crochet. So repeat the 5 trebles and then a V-stitch all the way around 16 more times. All right, so I've come to the end of my round, and I have 9 of these shells per se with 5 trebles, and then I have 9 V-stitches. And so what we're going to do is go ahead and slip stitch to the 4th chain of our original chain 4 that made our first treble. And you're going to go into the side as well as that back bump for a nice flush slip stitch. Okay. Moving on to round 4. You're going to slip stitch twice, and that's going to take us to the 3rd treble of this 5 treble shell. Okay. Chain up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do a double crochet into that same treble, and that's going to create a V-stitch. Now this is where our repeat is going to start. You're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then do a V-stitch into the V-stitch. So double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet. Now chain 2, 1, 2, and then you're going to do a V-stitch into that 3rd treble. So double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet. I'll go ahead and repeat that all the way around. Chain 2, V-stitch in the V-stitch, chain 2, V-stitch in the 3rd treble of your 5 treble shell. And all the way around, you're going to wind up having at the end of this round 18 V-stitches with 36 chain 2 spaces that also include the chain 2 spaces of your V-stitch. All right, so I've come to the end of round 4, and I have my 18 V-stitches, and I do have chain 2s. I have 36 chain 2s, including the chain 2s in my V-stitches. And so I just wrapped up with a chain 2, and I'm going to slip stitch to the 2nd chain 2, or the 2nd chain of our chain 4 that we had at the beginning. And again, that's going to be the side as well as the back bump. So we have a very flush slip stitch. Moving on to round 5, we are going to slip stitch into the chain 2 of our very first V-stitch. Okay, Now you're going to chain up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and put 6 more trebles, so yarn over twice into that same V-stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now this will be a total of 7 trebles because that chain 4 does create our first treble. Now we're going to go straight into the next V-stitch and do a V-stitch. So double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. All right, so this is where our repeat's going to start, and we're going to repeat this 8 times. Is that right? Yeah, 8 times. And so what you're going to do is do 7 trebles into the next V-stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oops, split my yarn, 7, and into the next stitch, you guys guessed it, it's going to be a V-stitch. So you're going to have a double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet for that V-stitch. Now all the way around, we're going to have 9 of these 7 treble shells, and then we're going to have 9 V-stitches. And so you should have also 9 chain 2 spaces. You'll have a total of 63 trebles and 9 V-stitches at the end of this round. All right, so wrapping up round 5, I've just completed my last V-stitch. I've got 9 V-stitches and 9 7 treble clusters here that's created shells. And so we are going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 4 that made our very first treble. We're going to go into the side as well as the back bump as always. All right, so again you should have 63 trebles and 9 V-stitches. Moving on to round 6, you are going to slip stitch 3 times, and that's going to take you to the middle stitch of your first 7 treble shell. So 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to chain up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do a double crochet into that same stitch, and that's going to serve as your first V-stitch. Okay, now we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That'll serve as the beginning of your repeat, and you're going to do a V-stitch into the V-stitch. So double crochet, chain 2, and another double crochet into that same V-stitch. Now we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to count to the 4th treble, and we're going to put a V-stitch in that stitch. So double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Okay, so for this round you're going to have V-stitches in your V-stitches, and you're going to have V-stitches in your 4th treble of each of your 7 treble shells, and you'll have chain 4s between every single one of your V-stitches. So at the end of this round you're going to have 18 V-stitches and 18 chain 4 spaces. All right, so I've come to the end of round 6, and I've got my 18 V-stitches and my 18 chain 4 spaces. And you guys guessed it, we are going to slip stitch into the second chain of our chain 4, and I am going to go into the side as well as the back bump for that slip stitch through that second chain of our chain 4. Oop, I missed it. All right. So there we go, and that's going to complete round 6. Moving on to round 7, and this is going to be the last round of the center of our Afghan here, what we're going to do is be slip stitching into that V-stitch. Okay, we are going to chain up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do a double crochet into that same V-stitch to create our initial V-stitch. Then we're going to chain 1, and this is where our chain 1 is going to start our repeat. Now you're going to do 9 trebles into this next V-stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to get a little bit tight, so you may need to move over your stitches. This is going to be 7, 8, and 9. Whew. There we go. You're going to chain 1, and then in the next stitch you're going to do a V-stitch. So double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. And now you'll complete your repeat, chaining 1, doing 9 trebles, chaining 1, and doing a V-stitch all the way around. You're going to repeat that 8 times, and you will omit the last V-stitch. So at the end of this round, you're going to have 81 trebles, which should be 9 treble shells, and then you'll have 9 V-stitches, and you'll have 18 chain spaces. All right, so I've come to the end of round 7, and this is going to complete part 1. We are going to go ahead and slip stitch into the second of the chain 4 into the side as well as the back bump. And so this round is going to have the bases to our first set of pineapples. And so these 9 treble clusters are going to be the bases of our pineapples. So again, this row you should have 81 trebles in total, which equals 9 pineapple bases. You should have 9 V-stitches, and then you should have 18 chain spaces here, okay? So I will link part 2 at the end of this video for you guys, and thank you so much for tuning in.